Welcome to Werewolf, the podcast. I'm afraid your narrator today is very, very unwell. Weirdly, for a werewolf, he's picked up a horrible bug. Must have been from Faeton. The snot fairy must have been annoyed with me or something. So please put up with our condition today. We are only a crew of 4 and we really love you very much. We don't understand why thousands of you listen to us each month, but you do. So you have to accept sometimes that we're only a little crew of people. And we tried to put. I tried to put this off until I got better, but I didn't. So I'm going to just go for it today. So here we go. Love you lots. Thanks for putting up with us being poorly. Jab, cross. Kick deep in the thigh, knuckle bent, stuck right in its eye, spin, sweep the leg, down it goes, stamp and crush, watch the blood flow. When I fight to win. Now that sounds so obvious. I fight to win. Sometimes, however I want to say it, I have to admit I don't win. Sometimes it goes really badly for me, but I always fight to win. I notice that many people don't do that. They just fight to survive. It seems weird to me. Okay, I get the idea that you want to live through the conflict, but that's not what it's all about, is it? Why fight if you don't enjoy it? You don't normally have to. I train hard in the fighting arts, as I want to be the worst thing you could ever meet in any situation. Being a great technician and not relying on being the werewolfy thing means I can beat, those things that are similar to myself. Yeah, I know it's rare to meet them. I know, but sometimes, it's happened. Werewolf fights werewolf, and a bit of technique beats animal fury every time. I have shocked many, as I have the skills, and the claws, and the teeth, and also the abhuman strength and stuff. I suppose I fight because I want to, and I really, really like it. I have a real fondness for, hurting, maiming, killing, and general nasty shit. My favourite thing is to steal my opponent's will, so that they quit, give up, and break. I want to break you mentally more than I ever want to beat you physically. Suppose that's why I love torture so much. Yeah, taking the strong and making them mentally cow to me is so super alpha, huh? Well, it's a bit more complex than that. I want to hurt you in many and various ways because I like it. Fighting is joy. It's joyful violence. I'm watching Simon de Montfort, a man I've just learned the history of in a long conversation, drinking fine malts at this strange bar full of strange creatures. An immortal knight born centuries ago. He is, unfortunately, a great person. I can see him enjoying himself. He enjoys the violence that he is issuing to his foes and the damage he makes. After the chat about sinning and things, and the fact that he's not allowed to do it, he seems to be handing out a lot of harsh, maybe holiness. Is he supposed to be able to do this? He's a fantastic fighter to watch. He moves with such grace as he punches a face and then turns away to where they can't say. He's suddenly back for another attack, and that kick in that leg gets a horrible crack. He's so skilled, and after our chat, I know why. He was a A great knight who fought for his country and obviously Christ, even though now, having met our Saviour, I kind of guess that Jesus didn't really want him to do any of that killing for him. If you don't know anything about knights, then you should have gone to school a bit more. They were the ultimate professional soldiers of their day. They trained all the time in the martial arts of their era and were noble and mainly well fed. The martial arts of the time were on a par with anything we have now in the world. The European knight was just a total black belt in killing. Why did I mention that they were well fed? Why would being well fed matter? Well, it means that they were big and strong, unlike many peasants at the time. Because, unlike many peasants at the time, they had enough food. They also had the best of the technologies of war at that particular time. The armour they wore was incredible. A knight on the field was incredibly difficult to kill just due to the suit of well-formed steel that covered him. They were the tanks of the Middle Ages as they stormed across the battlefield on their huge fuck-off horses. And even the horses were taught to stomp, stamp, kick and bite. They were the ultimate warriors of their respective times, and Simon was a remarkably talented member of that warrior class. They also had an ace in their hands in a way. The normal soldiery, well, they wouldn't really kill them because they were worth a fuckload of money if they were captured, and then they could be ransomed back to their respective families. Can you imagine being able to kill and maim others, and then if you get into a sticky situation, you just pay for your freedom? How brilliant's that? Watching him fight was incredible. It really was. He was not a particularly fast fighter, but he moved with absolute efficiency and grace. He danced his way through the crowd, striking, kicking and slipping blows, tripping others and enjoying the dance. I realised the music the professor danced to was a waltz while his opponents were fighting in random 4/4 time, and because of that, he was just never where they thought he would be. He had an innate ability to be out of the way of every strike, every grasp, every body and everything. It was hypnotising. He was destroying many opponents, and had not even broken a sweat, although his clothes were now somewhat bloody and damp from the bodily fluids that he'd coated them in. He was also not taking prisoners as he fought. He was finding gaps and filling them with fists and attacks. He now stood before a massive, heavily muscled, goblin orky type thing that swung at him with arms that looked and moved something like steam hammers. Fists roared in his direction through the air. One punch was a loose jab followed by a shit but powerful hook. The monster the professor faced knew how to fight. Sort of. It had learnt the other way that things learn to fight. Some things just learn by doing it a lot. In this case, you could tell that the thing had been fighting, well, a lot, mainly because of the patchwork mess of its face, and its ears, which were cauliflowered nubs on its head. As previously mentioned, the orc was swinging wildly at the man. Its technique of choice was to throw as many punches as possible at the professor as hard as possible. Yet, where those thrown fists went, the professor was not. At the end of the jab, the orc gently touched the 5 o'clock shadow of the professor's right cheek. The man in response moved his head slightly to the left and gave a wink and a smile that the orc noticed, and you could see a soft internal shudder. This perfectly timed tiny movement offset the orc's body weight as he thought he would send the entirety of his body mass into the professor's head through his fist. Time slowed in my eyes as I saw the short whiskers of the prof's cheek brush the scarred and scabbed knuckles of the creature's hand softly, as the professor's head continued to move downwards to escape the next blow. The subsequent thrown punch, a hook, travelled over his head, skiffing the top of it just enough to part his hair from the left side to the right. This showed high-level boxing skills, but this man was not a boxer. The professor's response was that of a killer. It was thrilling to watch. This was not playful competitive sparring. The orc was going to be stopped as quickly as possible, so it offered no more danger. The man's downward movement under the hook meant that the professor's perfect footing now, including his knees becoming bent, so that he could explode all his energy upwards. The uppercut was perfectly thrown as Simon sprung, taking the energy from the balls of his feet and moving it up through his entire body, consistently adding more power at each stage of his explosion until it reached his hand. The hand that landed under the orc's stone-like chin lifted the creature off its feet and sent its head arcing backwards, now on what was somewhat of a rubber neck. Its jaw exploded with the contact. Blood, teeth, saliva, and snot flew into the air as the body of the creature started to fall. As the orc fell, the professor sidestepped another attack by some other random thing. He pivoted and tripped a dwarf from behind, maintaining the turn, and then stamped on the chest of the downed orc with an exciting smash and crunch. It was a very exciting crunch for me, honestly. Goosebumps formed on my skin. I think others would have described it more as a, sickening crunch, to be honest. Whatever it wasn't getting up from that. It was never getting up again. The professor paused and I saw it. The blood-flecked face had a demonic grin. He was in his element. As though in a Tarantino film, he raised his fist to the sky, which I now noticed had blood-coated, beautifully crafted brass knuckles, and he roared like a beast. It sent a chill down my spine. I now had an all-new element of respect for this man. He'd explained he was a beast. Now I could see it in full, flowing action. Jesus Christ. He had to somehow contain this side of himself. How did he do that? He was like me, except he had to stop himself from oversampling these simple life pleasures. That was hell to me, pure hell. The penance that he was given was cruel and beyond anything reasonable for this poor creature. I would not pity him, though. I would not do that. I am not capable of that for this monster of a man. Then he was lost again, dodging and weaving his way into the maelstrom, causing the fairy folk to get in each other's way as they tried to attack him. Yes, this was no movie fight scene. They weren't lining up to take their turn. They were trying to grab him all at once. He was just an absolute warrior. I turned as a bellow caught my attention. I'd been distracted by watching the man fight. The thing that stood before me now was half cow, half man. Well, cow is wrong. It had the head of a bull, not just a bull. Sounds a bit tacky, but a raging bull who'd been injected with too much testosterone and then threatened to have its balls cut off. It had drool running from the corners of its mouth, and the stench of it was palpable. It was not a bull, it was the essence of an enraged bull. It was a bull's head on the body of a kind of man, but no ordinary man either. Again, like the bull aspect of this thing, it would have had to been a man who again would have drunk steroids and injected protein to become the behemoth that now stood before me. It was about 7 foot tall and looked like it'd been stuffed full of basketballs. It was that muscular. They bulged as the creature moved. It was enormous. Sorry, I will stop describing how large it was, but it's difficult because it was, on my mind at this point. You know how big that fucking thing was? Had I done the right thing by not transforming into my werewolf form? Probably not, but oh well, let's see what happens as I fight this massively gigantic, enormous, muscular big thing. Oh, and it was as loud as a really loud thing. It really was. I think usually this thing could make most things just shit themselves to death and die of fear in response to it just physically being there. I was lucky. Well, I wasn't lucky. I was given some time because it wanted to try and intimidate me. I like this. I do. It gave me more time that I could now use to prepare for my hyper-violent response. I don't intimidate particularly easily. I do another thing. What is the word? Oh, that's it. I tend to not intimidate but retaliate. You know, we've talked about this in the rules of the werewolf. One of the most important rules is retaliate first. I know you cannot retaliate first, but I can, so I do. As I watched, and as it offered no fight because it posed and raged, I was doing stuff. Every other creature present in the fight gave it space to do its thing. Like the bulls in the field, it had chosen its target, and that target was me, so everything else was going to stay out of the fucking way, so that thing did not decide to, well, get them. It only had eyes for me, and not in a good way, and I was nervous that it was going to try and yeah. As I watched, I took the handkerchief from my breast pocket and reached for a pint glass that was to hand. I wrapped the glass in the thin cloth whilst maintaining eye contact. I knew once that stare was broken, I knew that the beast would launch itself at me, so I stared right back. I crushed the glass, hiding it carefully, using my nice jacket to protect my hands. The glass, with some work, was now powdery enough. I smiled at the monster, yelled, and ran at it. I could see the creature's surprise at this. Nothing attacked it. This was new. What the fuck was I doing? The shock on the beast's face was beautiful. At about arm's length, I opened the handkerchief and, somewhat like throwing an open-handed jab, I pushed its contents into its face, rubbing it gently into the animal's eyes with pleasure at its horrific response. I felt the flesh cut, the fragments going deep into its face and eyes. I felt some pain in my palm, but it did not matter now. The gigantic fucktard was blind. I had felt the glass scour the surface of its eyes. It was in agony. It was over for Mr. Cow. Mr. Cow was now Mr. Walking Kebab. I stepped out of its personal space as it reached and swung at random things that got close. Something human-like was grabbed as it got within its reach and was torn limb from limb. And I mean that. Its arms were literally pulled from its body as the blinded Minotaur took its mouth to the thing's throat and tore into it, wrenching back and forth, ripping the skin and flesh, and gouts of blood sprang into the air. I watched. I watched in pleasure at the animalistic kill. There are rare times in life now that we can see this level of brutality in the world, unless you are lucky enough to live in certain countries where these things happen daily to people. You lucky bastards. Oh, and of course, you're not one of those people that those things happen to. That'd be bad. That's not what I want. I think more of you need to see and understand what violence really is like, you know, so that you know that your rights to your pronouns should not be fought as hard for as the lives of those that are dying in agony at the hands of those who enjoy killing, like myself. You have to search hard on the internet to find violence of this level. And I've got to say, it's never as good as seeing it face to face. It's kind of the difference between porn and fucking. As this fight, now murder, now butchering went on, I walked around the Minotaur to make an angle on it. I would now start to cut it down step by step. I would take my time, because I'm a cunt. After the bull thing had ripped the body to pieces and thrown it around the room, the creature still raged and swung left and swung right, grasping for more victims. As it turned away, I stepped up and stamped on its knee from the side as hard as I could. The thrill of the bellow of pain was phenomenal. Nothing could usually hurt this thing. Nothing normally would have tried to hurt it. The first blow gave a crunch and refunctioned the limb, making the hinge joint no longer a hinge joint, but what would it now be classed anatomically as? A fucked up joint? Yeah. The animal collapsed to one knee as it tried to rub the glass from the bloody mess that used to be its eyes, making them, well, even worse. Oh, I was enjoying this now, and as another stumbling body hit mine, I didn't hurt it. I didn't even take the time to focus on it. I just pushed it back into the crowd. You see, I can focus on things one at a time sometimes. I now walked up behind the noisy kneeling creature and was thoroughly excited about the next moment's actions. I searched around for something to really hurt it with. I nodded at Fenrir the wolf soul. Should we transform? I asked him. He laughed wolfishly. To be honest, Will, I think you've got this. Nothing came to mind. There was nothing in reach. And then there it was, the black decanter-like bottle. I grabbed the malt off the bar and broke the end of it against the worktop. The monster heard the crash and turned towards me in fear. Yeah, it was now scared. I audibly giggled. Oh, I was getting hard. I laughed as it tried again to wipe those blood-filled eyes with its massive ham-sized fists, raking the glass deeper into them and causing itself much more intense pain. I slowly and quietly walked up behind the Minotaur. The rest of the bar had gone quiet and still for a moment. All eyes were on us now. Voyeurs, watching the kill. I stepped forward with a feeling of deliciousness and grabbed one of its handy horns that it had on its head so it couldn't turn towards me. I held it with all my strength as it tried to struggle to get free. It sort of clambered to its feet, but the broken knee collapsed under it again, and I gave it not such a subtle kick. Just 'cause I am, horrible. Holding the now bellowing head tight, I raked the sharp bit of the broken bottle edge across the animal's throat, cutting the carotids and the larynx to shreds as I did so. A waterfall of blood spattered down the front of its body. It tried to hold its own throat, using its hands, gripping its neck. I ripped the bottle back again across the fingers that were trying to keep the torn gap closed. Fingers fell. Bits of flesh fell. It tried to then stem the blood with fingerless hands. It was pathetic to watch it. It was a pathetic creature. I'd taken its life from it. Yeah, it didn't realise it was dead yet. We'd have to change that. Bored with this now. I wanted to finish it, so I took the remnants of the bottle and stabbed it into the top of the creature's head, rocking it back and forth as the beast's bellows turned into gurgles. And took its time to fall under its own weight to the floor. And then it stopped breathing. I'd killed it. I smiled. Next, I thought, looking for my next plaything. The professor suddenly burst out of the crowd next to me. He'd taken a couple of blows himself, at least. He had a ragged cut on one eyebrow and a swollen lip.
Oh, why the hell did you do that?
Pointing to the head of the cow now dead monster. I was confused. It wanted to fight me, so I killed it. I thought I'd done quite a good job, I told him. The professor just looked so hurt. His face fell. He looked sullen and sad, staring at the dead animal. Did he know it? Was it a friend or his pet or something? And then realised, he pointed at the bottle remnants stuck out the bull's head.
The Glen Turret, man. Oh, the Glen Turret.
He croaked. a tear in his eye as the back of his jacket was suddenly grabbed and he was pulled back into the mirror.